Hey guys, welcome back to the Broner Pro podcast, where we hope to help you reach your full potential, whether that be inside or outside the gym. I'm your main host, Jeremy So, self-proclaimed gym bro, and I'm joined today by two of my favorite clients. They have just both competed just recently, overcome crazy good hurdles just to get here. So I'm super proud of these both, and I had to get them both on a podcast because I think their story in itself is inspiring. Not only that, it's very relatable to a lot of people out there that may be struggling to take themselves to that next level. So this is why we're here. So thank you, Nitin and Sarah, for joining me on this podcast today.
No, thank you, Jeremy. I've heard so many of your podcasts that it's almost deja vu being on one. So thank you.
Of course. And so we'll start things off. So, Nitin, let's start things off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey from the beginning to end? Like, tell us before you even started with S Legion, what was your journey like in the health and
Yeah.
fitness realm?
So I'm 38 years old. I'm from India, grew up in India, did my studies there, and then moved around for work. Went to the US, lived in Singapore, and then in Australia for the last 10 years. Um, I've had a food disorder, which is something I recognize now because I've been one of those guys that, either can binge a lot. And when I say a lot, like I'm talking a lot, like a lot of food. Or when I'm on a very strict diet, I can be if I wanted to. So I grew up with a lot of food around where relationship building, emotional healing, everything's around food. So if you're celebrating, you eat food. If you're grieving, you eat food. If we're doing anything, it's food.
Let,
And
let me just quickly stop you there, but that is so true in every aspect. Being Asian culture is very much it is food focused. It's like, being social in today's society is about going out to eat, enjoying food. And if you're coming from like Singapore and India, like going out to eat was a lot more common and a lot more like, you spend time with people going out to eat. So I think a lot of people do forget that in Australian culture, it's actually a bit different. Like health and fitness has now grown a lot more, that it's more normal to be into health and fitness, but less normal to go out to eat all the time compared to Asian culture. Like I just went to like Korea and stuff, and it's like people will be spending more time out. You could literally have the same restaurant 100 meters down the road and they'll both be busy because like everyone just goes out to eat. Which is
yeah, yeah. So food is a big part of life and has always been. And we unfortunately acquired, as a culture from India or from Asia, intuitive eating is something that we are told to do. So, eat what you think when you're hungry, and which essentially becomes what your family is eating. You end up eating that. What your mom feeds you, you end up eating all of that. And you probably get this, Jeremy. Asian moms always find their kids skinny. Like there's
yes.
never a time where they're like, "This is too much." They'll always like eat more.
Yeah. Oh man, that is so normal. Like that is so truth to the fact that even my parents, they would be like, you gotta eat big to get strong. And like you gotta eat a lot. And if you're not eating a lot, you're not getting fed or getting looked after, which was just super weird because and I guess like it could come from obviously like social economic status that, back then it was like food was hard to come by. Like, my parents also have dealt with, not being from the not so nourished areas, and so generally they would be whatever food they could get they could eat, and so coming to
Yeah.
Australia they just made one thing that was certain, that they were going to feed their children. And then so it just translated into even myself like being overweight at one point, like 115 kilos. I never knew those cues of like stop eating, I don't need to finish everything on the plate, but we needed to finish everything on the plate because it was seen as respectful if we don't finish everything on the plate or like eat what our parents are cooking us.
Right. Shit, you were 115. It's hard to even imagine that looking at
Oh,
you
really?
now.
Oh, yeah. Before I went on my own journey, like about 12 years ago, at least 12, 13 years ago, I was 115 kilos. I was like overweight before I got into the shape that I am now. And obviously, like, yeah, back then it was just like eat big to get strong. Like, I remember mom always saying that. So she just fed me nonstop. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was rude not to finish food. Like if you come to an Asian household, everyone knows that you must eat everything that your parents cook you. It's just rude not to.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. That brings a lot of memories. Like if you go to someone else's place and if you don't eat, that's rude. And that's rude, it's serious rude.
Yeah, and if
Like,
you don't finish it all, it's like you don't like the food. And it's like,
yeah,
no, I'm just trying to manage by like I'm stuffed. I can't eat anymore. But you have to force it down because that was seen as the norm, which is very normal.
yeah. So yeah, you're right. I think our culture is, especially coming from Asia, our culture is so food focused that as kids, we develop a lot of bad habits and habits that aren't considered bad when you're back home. But when you look at overall, where you are in life and how you look like, you sort of now when looking back, I'm like, I can't even realize how much food I could eat and just had no control. Um, and it's still a long journey, but I grew from India, never really trained. And I think a big part of growing up in India was that how you look physically and how you look aesthetically and how strong you are isn't a part of it. We're supposed to be doctors, engineers, people who kind of end up doing a job and provide for the family. There
Yeah.
is very little to do with how you feel as an individual physically. As long as you're not in the hospital, you're fine. And that's a big part of
Keep
fitness over
working.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I never really trained. Went to the gyms in India. I remember when I was, I think, 9 or 10 years old. I saw a picture of a bodybuilder in a magazine, um, which was incidentally, I think, a magazine we were tearing apart to actually keep some food on. So,
Yeah.
so there's a picture of a bodybuilder, and he had abs. And I don't know what they were called, but I was like, "Holy shit, that looks really good!" Like, and I'm sure I was overweight even there. So it wasn't that I became overweight when I was in my 20s. I think I was always chubby. And I remember seeing those abs and I was like, my God, what would it feel like? And so always had an image of bodybuilding in my head. So tried losing weight a few times. So from my 15s to my probably mid 30s, even recently, went on this crazy sorts of diets where you would stop eating, be extremely lean, but like get weak. And
Yeah.
most of that was just running
Yeah.
and cutting food out, which wasn't sustainable. So I would lose weight and then never kind of sustain there. But even when I lost weight, I would not look good to myself because I was like, I want to look strong and I want to be, have muscles. Whereas I would look lean and malnourished. So I did that a few times the last 20 years. And sort of that's been my dabbling with fitness. That's what it was really.
Yeah. And I guess, that comes down to a bit of knowledge, right? Like, I think you probably thought, like, just lose the weight and you see abs, and that was like purely what it was. And you, obviously, being malnourished, you weren't able to, like, obviously build muscle. And, if you look back 20 years ago, there's not as much evidence-based research as it is right now with, like, current health and fitness stuff that people forget that we are very lucky in this day and age that we have all this information there and we have coaches like this, like online coaches like myself, that are out there to help educate people and guide them in optimizing their results and really understand that it's not just fat loss but also fat loss and weight loss are completely different. Like, weight loss is including fat, muscle, just a bunch of weight in general, whereas fat loss is purely trying to maintain or sustain muscle mass whilst also dropping body fat, which is completely different. And I think people still forget this to this day. They're like, I want to see my abs, and I'm like, well, do you want to drop weight or do you want to drop body fat? Because they're both different things. Like, they're slightly different if you look at them differently. Like, what you did was purely probably just weight loss, just lose weight and I'll get leaner. But then you misunderstood that, oh, maybe like, where, how do I build muscle there? you know
Yeah, yeah. And I think just the whole game was wrong. Like I was trying to get to somewhere where I had no idea myself, but I thought I could get there just by Googling stuff. So I went through a lot of, internet research, or sort of research where how do you get abs in 30 days kind of a thing. And did a lot of crazy crunches. Like I remember doing 100 crunches at one point of time when I was like 95 kgs. And obviously with that weight and with the amount of body fat I had, you're never going to see abs. But I thought that's how you get abs. And I think more, so the food was a one big thing, but my relationship with the gym, I've always struggled with that because it's hard when you're overweight and you step into a gym and they've got all these ultra shredded dudes or people who've got big arms. And as guys, I think you sort of look at the arms first, arms
yeah
and traps, and like that's what I want to look like. But every time you step in the gym, you're always a beginner. Yeah, and that's so I sort of used to go to the gyms and being in Australia for the last 10 years. one thing I realized was everyone was doing something that was activity related. There was not a lot of food focus, like you said in the start of the podcast. People were actually, out there running beach, and everyone looked great. And here I was with man boobs, and I could never take my shirt off at the beach, let alone actually feel good about it. So, um, my relationship with gym sucked big time because I was so scared of going in there and never really understood what I was doing there because, uh, you know, mind muscle connection, all those things, I had no idea. I was like, just, do the motion, whatever you saw on the YouTube, and just kind of do it and get out of there. And sort of just demotivated myself because you do it for a few months, not see anything, and then come out of it. So that's, I think, what I landed with the fitness all these years.
Yeah, and that's another thing. We talked about just then. We touched on the topic that over the 20 years we now have nowadays a lot of information out there, and then that brings me to the next idea that there's too much information out there. It's like what's working, what's not. You're always gonna have someone saying you should be doing this or you should be doing this to build muscle or you should be doing this to get abs, and it's all these misconceptions with like understanding or filtering what's actually out there on the internet right now. And I think that's in the age we're currently in, where there's just too much things out there like, hey, this is the 3 top builders to build biceps. And I'm like, no, it's just a fundamental movement. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Like, to build muscle, you need to eat in a surplus and you need to train with good intensity. And it's as basic as it gets. A bicep curl will always be a bicep curl. A squat will always be a squat. But I think people try to overcomplicate it with this fancy exercise because they're trying to, like, per se go viral because they're like, oh, these are my 3 exercises to build. And I'm like, yeah, but how long have you spent doing bicep curls before you found this fancy exercise? Like, a lot of times people will build it without having to do those fancy exercises. And so that's where the fundamentals are the key takeaways. And it's as basic as it comes, but you've got to be willing to search for it and educate yourself with it, because at the end of the day, working with a coach, I have the information for you. But as you said, you typed into Google, how do I build abs? Like, you've got to ask these questions to your coach to actually understand what you need to know for yourself, because I don't know what you don't know. I have the answers for you, but I don't know what you're looking for. And if I just bombarded you with hours of information, you're going to be like, wait, I'm losing you here. Like, what are you saying? Like, and so it's not specific, because like if you type a question to Google, you'll get an answer specific to your question that you ask. You're not going to get like random other answers talking. Let's say if you want to build your biceps, you're not going to all of a sudden see calf exercises, because it's nothing to do with what you need to know. And that's where, hopefully, like, that's where coaches are, making that difference now. It's like we're trying to filter the stuff for you so I can give you direct answers to relatable to what you actually need to know at your current level, because there's many different levels at which we do this, right?
Yeah. I think it's a huge. You got to answer the right question to the right person. So it's a big part of it. No, so I think fitness had always been something I wanted to kind of delve deeper into. I felt like there was something a deeper calling in myself. That I wanted to be the fittest version of myself. I really wanted to be it. But all these years, I was like, I'm really struggling with getting there because sort of I need someone to help me tell me what to do because I'll do it well, just that I didn't know. So I was trying to coach myself all these times and went through a series of wrong people. So, coaches, fitness trainers that were not so much about coaching or helping, it was more about, buy this program or, you got to do this, spend this money. Which sort of was the wrong frequency to be on as well. So I wasn't really meeting the right people in terms of who could really guide me there. So ended up spending a lot of money and a lot of time and kind of just feeling like I am the problem and I would never get there because my body is not responding. Plus, I'm a vegetarian. So I had a lot of stigma around the fact if you even think of getting bigger, even stepping on the stage, you got to eat meat. I was like, that's something I can't really go back to. So I used to eat meat till about 12 years of age, and I left it for ethical reasons. I didn't want to kind of, eat meat because I love animals, and I didn't want to kind of just eat meat anymore. And I've been a vegetarian for the last 25 years now. And I've met a lot of people on the way. They said, you can't really do that as a vegetarian. You got to eat meat. You got to become big and shredded. Especially when you want to get shredded, you got to eat meat. And like, I can't really I really want to get there, but I can't, compromise on this. Which is where I think I finally stumbled upon S Legion, which is a very interesting story how I actually found you guys. So um, it's probably been on the right frequency at some stage.
Yeah, no, no, I'm really glad to hear. And I think, this understanding is that, there's a lot of information out there. And yes, being vegetarian is going to make the job harder. Like to be fair, it is true. But then it's not going to limit you. Like, I mean, we have James as well, who's also a vegan competitor. And he's been training for, I think over 10, 12 years, training consistently. And, he's been building for a very long time. If you think about it, your journey just only started,
Yeah,
so your ability to build muscle, yes, it might be a bit slower, but it doesn't change the fact that you still can't try. Like, life's
yeah,
too short to not try and live the life that you want to live. Right. Like, and I think a lot of times people get this idea. It's sad because it's like, people tell them you can't do this, you can't do that. And that's part of what you want to do, right? Like anything you want to achieve in life, people are going to say you can't do it. Like it's very normal that the amount of times I try to start something new, they're going to be like, no, you can't do it. Like there's just doubt. Like there's doubt in their face when they look at you when you say something and they're just everyone wants to not see you succeed. And I think,
yeah,
that's one thing I always focus on is that I truly believe that everyone that I connect with or I work with in any point in my career, I'm grateful for because I will learn from it and I hopefully can guide people and be that person in that corner that says, yes, you can do it. Like who says you can't? And I want to be that one person that believes in you. And that goes a long way over 100 people that tell you that you can't. And that's one thing I always will stick to, and I always will stay true to myself that I want to be that one person that believes in you. Like we'll just optimize what we can. We'll do what we can, and that's pretty much how we came and talked about it. And also like how we actually did first meet. We actually did have a conversation before you even started with us. It was almost a year ago. It was last year. I
yeah,
remember having the phone call because I think I was driving somewhere, and I was like, "Oh, I'll give you a ring." And then we started chatting, and then you I think, just started being consistent and started getting results, right?
yeah, yeah. And I think, yeah, so it was actually 1.5 years back from now.
Yeah.
And I remember you sort of turned me down because you were like, you need to go get a PT because one of the first questions was, how much training experience we got? And I was like, not much. And then he said, look, it's not probably best time for you to work with an online coach or even, trying to get, where you want to because you need to go get a PT. And that was actually very impressive because I'm like, okay, this guy is not trying to sell me a course. He's actually going to tell me, how you do it. And so I think integrity and honesty were two things I kind of missed with all my fitness coaches before. So that was actually good. So thank you for doing that.
Because that's something I will always stick to is the things when I started like coaching was always to help the client as best as I can. That's my job. That's my role and what I want to do. I want to be the one person that believes in you. And yes, some people may think I'm too positive. Maybe Sarah may think that's just like, are you just being nice? But at the end of the day, like there's too much negativity out in this world that I just want to be that one person that be like, I can support you through this. Like we can optimize it and I will be real with you when I'll give you the best route possible that we can get there, right? But I'm not gonna promise you and be like, we're gonna go to Olympia because like that's one thing that's like a whole different world. But it's one of those things that you could be the best version of yourself, and focusing on harnessing on that is more important than being like, because anything you do in life, there's always gonna be someone better than you. Like, and that's pretty much the life of what we live in, like whether it's business, whether it's health and fitness, there's always going to be someone better. And so it's like, well, why can't we harness our true potential in ourselves and live the best possible life that I want to live? Like if I want to live this way, this is the way I want to live, you know which is
Yeah,
super important.
yeah,
But it was funny because I remember that conversation. I remember driving and I remember I was like, yeah, I think you need to go see a PT, man. Like I'm not going to sell you online coaching right now because you're just not ready yet. And it's like
yeah,
when you're ready in a few months, then we can chat. And that was purely what I did. I remember that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think it's very interesting how I found you guys because 2 years back, when I was my heaviest, I saw a picture of me and I couldn't believe how big I had gone. So I was like, it's time to at least shed some kilos. And I remember going to a sub store in Cannington or Canning Vale somewhere. And there was this girl who was super fit. And I started asking, what's the bodybuilding scene here like? And I didn't have the even courage to kind of tell her that I want to step on the stage because she looked amazing. And I was like 111 kgs at that point of time. So I didn't want to make a fool of myself. But then I said, who are the good trainers here? And I remember her writing down on back of her paper, escalation. And one of the things that she said is, what she really liked about you guys was the mental health aspect of things, how you're approaching the whole idea of training and comp prep from a mental health perspective. So that's the first intro that I had with S Legion. And then I stalked your page for quite some months. Then I went to an ICN show, I think 1.5 years back, and I saw a lot of guys that you'd prepped. You kind of one on the stage every now, like every 5 minutes, you as a coach, getting a coach award.
Yeah.
So I found you, and honestly, even then, didn't have the. I mean, it sounds funny even to say this, but I was like, I can't even go and speak to this guy right now because if he looks at me and I'm like, I was like 105 kgs, I lost like 6 kgs. I was like, if I tell him that I want to step on the stage, this guy is going to look at me because I met those sorts of people who were like, you can't really get there. So I didn't really speak to you, but I saw you and all the guys who did prepped, and I was like, this seems like the guy who knows it. And so that was my first intro to Escalade.
Amazing. Oh no, that once again, let me just clarify. I'm a very nice guy. So I mean, Sarah may say that I'm not, but I'm actually a very approachable person, I think. So if you ever want to chat to me, like always come up. I'm always gonna give you real feedback. But one thing I will always do is believe in you and believe that we can reach our true potential. And and that's the most important thing. Like I think that's it's life. Like I said, I will always say this: life's too short to not want to be the best. And I know it sounds corny, and a lot of people will be like, "Oh, reach your full potential" and all that. But I truly believe that. Like I think if I were to die today, I'll be fucking happy. Like that's one thing I literally kind of live by as a moral, that it's like, if I was to die today, have I done everything I could possibly do? Have I impacted lives that makes me happy? And that's all that matters to me. You know,
Yeah.
it will eat at my soul no matter how busy I'll get. I'll always stick to that.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, like I was talking about this, if I die today, would I be happy? And someone asked me this recently, and I was like, if I was to die today, I don't care if I'm happy or not, but I'm gonna get some blueberries, some fruits that I'm craving right now, and just eat as much and then die.
Yeah. Just have a meat cheat meal. It almost sounds like your last supper or something. But like you'll be happy that you did something beyond what you could imagine that you could have done. And
Yeah.
through every doubt and every person that probably threw doubt at you, you overcame that and you got to the stage, which is in itself a feat. And you got your abs in the end.
Yes, yes. I can't believe, couldn't believe. Like, you know how obsessed I've been with my abs. I've like, shown to the world that I've got abs. It was unreal. Like, it was unreal. Yeah.
After so many
That's
years, that was the
yeah.
switch. Like, and so you had this switch in your mind back then that's like, what you had the switch that you were just sick and tired of not getting the results you want. You're like, I'm just gonna go all in this time. And I think that's an important factor or an important skill to have, is like, eventually when you start out your journey, you've got to have that drive to want to go all in. Like, and then the day, I want people to want to come to me and be like, hey, I need help. And I'm ready to give it my all and try my best, because that attitude goes further. Because when you have those slip ups, when you aren't 100%, I've seen so many people, and I've worked with a lot of people that just give up all of a sudden. They just had one bad week, and all of a sudden they just given up completely, and they're just like, oh, I guess this isn't going to happen, so I'm just going to give up now. And I think that's an important skill to have, is that you've got to be so self motivated, and you've got to be the person that claps for yourself. Because at the end of the day, I'm just here to give you tools, and it's up to you whether or not you're going to use them. And so I can guide you as much as I can, but at the end of the day, it comes down, the battle is your internal battles that you have with yourself. It's a day in, day out battle, nonstop, like 24 hours of the day. When you go to sleep, when you go wake up, it's all on you. That's why I say, like, you always tell me that, oh, you're gonna say that you didn't help me. Like, well, Nitin tells me this, that I haven't, that I will probably say that I haven't helped you much. And that's the reason why I believe I don't, because I'm like, I'm just giving you a manual. Like, here's a manual. Like, these are the instructions of what to do, and you're executing the manual. Like, you're the one doing it. So that's why it's an internal battle that you had to overcome to get to where you are right now.
I think they're doing something bigger than that, Jeremy. And this is digressing the point, but I think there's a trainer and then there's a coach. And there's a huge difference between both of them. So the trainer can give you the manual of 4 sets, 12 reps each, train to fail. That's technicality. I think what I've found really different, and that's probably one of the reasons I was able to stick to my prep really well, was the fact that there was always the fact that there was compassion every time we screwed up, because I screwed up a lot, and there was all sorts of understanding and tricks, to be honest, like, things that you knew. Like, I remember telling you that I had nothing more, probably 3 weeks out, to give in. Like, food was low, cardio was high. And he said, take time off in terms of no cardio. And I was like, are you serious? And then I dropped weight. Like, I wouldn't even have guessed that, that was the case. So I think you're doing a lot bigger than that. So I just want to say that out. Yeah, I
Oh,
think
thank you.
there's a
Thank you so much.
lot of support that I personally had. And I know Ishika has the same, Sarah has the same. I think everyone's felt the same during prep. So prep was a different experience completely,
Oh,
which we'll talk about it. Yeah.
we'll talk about it soon. But yeah, prep was yeah, it's one thing. It's like, I had that experience when it's needed. So like I think a lot of people forget that I have a lot of tools in my toolbox, but I don't apply it all unless it's actually needed. And it's making those right calls, especially like how you just mentioned about pulling out the cardio. You'd be like, are you serious? Like, I'm in prep right now. Should I be doing cardio? And I'm like, no, trust me, like just pull out the cardio. It's gonna probably reward a lot more better. And you started losing weight. You were like, oh shit, this is actually working. And so Sarah can talk about it. She can vouch for that as well, because we have also had to pivot a little bit for her comp prep. And that's what comp prep is. Like a lot of times people can't have perfect comp preps. I have clients like I just don't do much for, because like it's just like there's not much things that arise, and it's just like a good prep, like, so but when cases like this happens, that's when a coach comes in to be like, no, we need to make adjustments now. Like that's the calls we get, I guess, like we are paid to do, to kind of make sure that we get to the stage safely, but at the same time bring the absolute best that we can have. And that's pretty much the difference. Yeah. Experience, and obviously having tools in my toolbox and the continuous upskilling. um Perfect. So thank you for that, Nitin. We will go to Sarah now. We'll talk a little bit about your journey itself before we can move over to start to talk a bit more about prep. Yeah, Nitin? That's all good. So Sarah, it's your turn
Yes.
now. Tell us a little bit about your journey, your story, everything that has happened to kind of get you to where you are right now.
So like my story, my family is very like different to like Nitin. I mean, I'm obviously not Asian, but I'm Italian. So it's on the other end of the scale. Like my family will come at
Actually,
you with
Italian,
pizza,
let me just
pasta, and
stop.
desserts.
Italian and Asian culture is very similar. It would definitely be the same mindset that we get fed a lot. Italian families eat a lot. It is the same as Asian families. So we actually, I would say Asians and Italians are very close to each other.
Yes, especially during prep when my mom would come knocking on my door with pizza, and she's 2 doors down from me.
Oh,
To feed your kids, right? Not you, yeah?
No, she would come at me with pizza. She would bring like 6 boxes of pizza and be like, "You're too skinny. You need to eat."
Okay, so how did you overcome that? So let's all.
I fed it to my husband and my kids instead. Yeah.
Okay. You threw them under the bus. But I guess, okay, so tell us a bit about like when you started your journey. So you started training how long ago? What was your journey like up until this point?
Okay, so I initially, when I was younger, when I was about 16, I did a midnight flip and left my family and went to Sydney. I needed to escape my family drama over here, and instead I ended up getting into a toxic relationship in Sydney. So my escape from there was to join the military. So I ended up being in the military for about 2, 3 years, and then I came home. When I came home, I met my now husband. And then we got married, had children, and obviously Asian and Italian food was literally like our marriage. We would go out and eat all the time, or we'd be at home cooking all the time. And food was basically the principle of my marriage. It was just food, which Eddie struggled with when I went into prep. I suppose like after having children as well, like I piled on a bunch of weight. I ended up going from about 69 kilos all the way up to 97 kilos post pregnancy. And I got even bigger with my second baby, which was about 4 years ago. After my second baby was born, I decided it was a great idea to start law school full time. So, kids, husband, working, law school. So my diet then went from eating all the time to Red Bull and chocolate bars. And then my dad got sick and he didn't tell anybody. He gave us a call 2 weeks before he passed away to tell us that he was sick. And by the time I got to see him, I had 48 hours before he died. So that was like really hard. And so the energy drinks and the chocolate bars was what I was living on. When I would drive my car, I would get massive anxiety attacks. And so not only was I killing myself on energy drinks and sugar, I was taking a shit ton of anxiety medications. So Eddie was like, instead of doing the anxiety medications, maybe go to the gym. So law school, full-time, children, anxiety medications, Red Bull and sugar, I decided that the gym might help. And so I then got into another toxic relationship with a personal trainer that didn't really train. He just took my money and ran. And then I'd already been like following Nicole for a while in the background, like watching her YouTube videos, and she's so amazing and she's so sweet, but I feel like my personality would clash with her. So Eddie was like, what about Jeremy? So I was like, no, like, he scares the shit out of me. So maybe that will work.
Scare the shit out of you. I'm glad. Once again, I am approachable. But I don't know. I give off that vibe.
You really do. Like, you just stare at people. But hey, it works.
Wait, really? I must be like, I don't know. I'm deep in thought a lot. I think about a lot of different things. And even when coaching, I'm like, I need to ponder on this a little bit more before I give an answer. Because it's like, it comes to me. Like when I'm not really trying to think about it, that's when the answer comes to me. It's a weird way of how I coach, but that's pretty much how I do things. Like, yeah.
Asian dad mode.
Yes, Asian dad mode. Love that.
So yeah, I mean, like I remember calling you. I was sat in my car and I was talking to you because I just thought powerlifting was helpful. I was really angry, like at my dad, at like the whole situation, like at my life, like nothing was working out for me. And I remember talking to you about that. And I suppose like you helped me a lot. And like when I was at comp and I said to people, you come to a crossroads in your life where you're like, you either keep going down the path you're going and you're literally you may as well start digging your own grave. But you taught me that, I don't know, like you can pull yourself out of it. You can stand back up. You can brush yourself down. You can replace those habits with something positive. And I suppose that's what really helped me. It was never for me really about like the strong muscles or the ripped abs, because I have that. I just mentally, like if I'd have not found you or my husband had not recommended you, like I might not even be sat here having this conversation with you, because that was the path that I was going down. So yeah, like I suppose that's what got me into being with you and then competing with you.
Yeah. That's a great story in itself. I do remember the time we chatted for the first time. And I think I did recommend Nicole. At the time, I was like, "Oh yeah, like my partner."
Yeah,
I was like, "Yeah, I did." And you're like, "Oh no, I think I'll just go." So I was like, "Okay, like we can make this work." And I remember because like the bikini stuff, and it's like kind of like, we just first started the journey, right? Like our goal wasn't just competing; it was just like we just wanted to be a better version of ourselves. And I was like, we got to start eating more food. I guess it was just more like just play. Let's just see how we go. Like that's pretty much like the whole process of it. It's just like, adding new things to your repertoire of skills you already have, and everything you went through is honestly an inspiration to a lot of people out there. I think, with every card you dealt with, you overcame them and you excelled and you battled everything. Like, from like cultural, family, a lot of different things that happened in your life, you overcame them to get to where you are now. And I think that's a feat in itself. Like no matter the outcome, I was already happy that we made it to the stage. Obviously we have dealt with stuff during prep, which we can discuss later. And I think you should be super proud of yourself. Like honestly.
Yeah, I am. Thank you. And you helped me do that. Like you helped fix everything.
I wouldn't say I have fixed everything. You did it yourself. I just, like I said, as I say, they will be like, nope, you help more than that. But I truly believe I just give guidance. And like I said, I do believe that having that one person in your corner is so important, and it can take you places. Just having one person that believes in you, that you can achieve greater things, is all you need, And I think a lot of coaches should be doing that for clients, because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. A coach and a trainer, as Nitin said, is completely different. A trainer is like, you can just give someone a program here, follow it, and then that's it. But it's about what do you do beyond that to actually coach someone in. And I'm not going to say I'm a mental health expert. I'm more positive because I am not. I am not a qualified mental health expert, but at the same time, it's like, having someone just to talk to, just that relationship is super important. And like I said, there's a lot of coaches out there that, the client and the coach might not be the right relationship, and it's not the coach's fault, it's not the client's fault, it's just the relationship just didn't blend. And that might have been the same experience that you might have had with your last trainer, and it was just the case of just didn't connect, like it just didn't work out the way, he didn't have your best intentions at heart, and so it just led to one thing or another.
Yeah, and I suppose like with coaching as well, it's like you can get poached by 100 different coaches because they think you've got potential. But it's like it comes back down to like loyalty and friendship as well. It's like I don't just look at you as my coach. It's like you became my friend and I trust you and I trust what you've implemented because what you implemented worked. It allowed me to be there for my children. It's allowed me to continue studying. It's allowed me to get my life back. And even if a coach came at me and said, let's go to Olympia, it's like I don't really want that anyway. So, go take your Olympia and go away, like I'm happy. I'm happy.
And it does happen so much in this field, but once again, it's not something that I would ever stop a client, and I'll always wish my clients the best interest at heart. Like if I don't have the skills to help get you to that next level that you want to get to, it's your choice to make. At the end of the day, like I am a coach here, but if you are happy to have me here, then I will stay here and I'll guide you the best way I can, because at the end of the day, there's no magic training formula, no magic nutrition formula, no magic supplement that's going to take you to that next level. It's just purely consistency and time. That's the best way to kind of put it. Like, we discussed this a little bit about how, like, if, for example, you wanted to do wellness over bikini, will that change your training? No, it wouldn't, because it'll still be the exact same training. It's still going to be the exact same nutrition. Everything's going to look the same. The only difference is there's no difference. Sorry. The only thing that you got to focus on is consistency over time. Consistency over time, your ability to improve and the quality at which you improve things. So, like, obviously, quality of training, quality of nutrition, quality of life outside of competing, because having that balance or harmony in your health and fitness is super important. And I think a lot of times people neglect that. And so it's like, even now, Nitin, you may slip up sometimes. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like, it's all good. Like, it's not going to be the end of the world. Just get back on track tomorrow, And you're like, yeah, that's cool. I'll do that, And so it's this idea that, finding harmony in health and fitness is what everyone should look for, because it's not just always go, go, go. It's about knowing when to be 80%, to pull back a little bit and just chill out. Like, it happens, that's what life is. And, we can't just keep spinning this one plate of health and fitness, because, we forget that, yes, you could have the fitness part, but if you don't have the health part, then you're not going to be balanced. You're not going to be happy. And then you start eating away into relationships, family, your other values that you hold dear to you. And it could be for your kids as well, spending time with them. You start to lose these things. And I think that's why it's super important that having harmony in health and fitness, you got to remember to find that health portion of this process.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all good.
Sweet. They're rice cakes. That's a positive.
They're rice cakes. Yeah, that looks nice and healthy. Sweet. Okay, cool. And so let's talk about a little about your preps now. Let's see how the prep period was like. So obviously we both did the transformation. That was kind of what we both aimed for. Like, both of you aimed for the transformation challenge, which was end of this year. Nitin, close second place, almost took out that first place. Sarah winning the first in transformation, which was our original goal. So you guys both did exceptionally well in that. What kind of, I guess, like, we can talk about prep itself now. So what was prep like for, let's start with Nitin. What was prep like for yourself the whole way through?
I think it was walking into this zone where everything was new. Like, I remember even before we were in prep, I had so many questions about prep, because I'd heard this term, like, I want to get into prep. I want in my head, that's where I was going to become a bodybuilder, and everything, the health aspect of before the prep. Like, I remember we were up to 400 gram carbs at one point of time. We had a very short build phase. And in my head, I was like, this is the part where I'm kind of just going to the gym, and in my head, I wasn't really building any muscle, which I was, right? But that sort of eating more food was sort of an easy part. I was like, prep, I can't wait for prep. Prep is something amazing. I'm going to get into it. And when prep started, it was slightly earlier. I think you decided to kind of start prep a little earlier than what we had thought, which was, I didn't see it coming. So I was glad. It was coincidental. I went out and binged a big portion of rice the day before. So very timely. I think we were in prep for about 22 weeks, and it was a roller coaster. Like I sort of had heard, your first podcast, does prep have to need to be 100%? And so I sort of thought I knew what I was getting into. But I remember we picked up 10 kilograms from when I started with you in that build phase, and then we lost, I think, a total of 23, 24 kgs in 22 weeks. So it was harsh. It was a lot, but I think it was one of those experiences where I would look back and it's like I did everything by the book. Like whatever I had, I just gave it all, and probably a little more beyond that. But I did everything by the book. So I think every week I felt I was winning in prep. So every day that I stuck to the program, and honestly, Sarah, Shakaya, William, the group that we had, well, it became a little family. So we had a Team Jeremy, group on Instagram, and we would bitch about everyone's food drops, what the check-ins were, and like all of that was like, this is sort of I made new friends, to be honest. Like something I had missed in my life in gym is making friends. So prep was very enjoyable, but I think for anyone that is looking to go into prep for the first time, it is going to be an experience for a lifetime. And the first prep, I think, is probably the most special one because you sort of have no idea what's going to be. Yeah. So it's everyone's got a different one.
I think it's crazy you say that because I think a lot of people get a misconception sometimes. It's like they think prep is going to be a lot. It is an experience. It's super hard. It's super crazy. It's going to be an experience of a lifetime. But I think people forget that it's not much different from off season to prep time. Like you're still eating your meals. You just have to be more consistent, like 100%, and you've got to do a bit more cardio. And then after you get lean, after you get up to a point that you're lean enough and you're hungry enough, that's when it starts to eat at you. That's when everything starts to kick in. Like the sleep starts to decrease. You start to get hungry all the time. You're like nonstop craving. Your recovery is worse. Your strength is bad. And you're not really able to do much because you can't function very well. And that's when you truly get into the real prep zone. But the majority of it, it's generally the same. I mean, like, a lot of times people think it's going to be a lot different than what it is. And I'm like, oh no, we're just going to pretty much start cutting now. That's pretty much it. Like we're going to start dropping your calories a little bit, doing a bit more cardio, but now you have to be consistent with your, like, obviously check-ins as well as your food and your training and your cardio. You've just got to tick the boxes. And I think that's what you did really well in, that you just kept ticking the boxes. You're just like, just one day I'll just do my cardio, do my training, I'll do this. And then you ask a few questions here and there to really figure out exactly how you should be feeling, what's to be expected. And those are really good questions. You always drop really good questions to me because I'm like, I write most of these questions down because we're actually creating a S Legion Academy, which is getting launched in about 2 weeks' time, almost very soon. I think we are launching next week. It's been in the works, but it was a whole bunch of questions that you also added in that I was like, oh, this is a good question. I need to add this into my comp prep course. So then that way people who ask me this question, I'll be like, oh yeah, just check out this video. Like, check out this video. Like, it's already answered. Like, so that's why I was really grateful for you both that really dropped really good questions in general that really helped me figure out, like, what do people don't know? Because at the end of the day, like, it's not just, oh, just deal with it. Like, I don't want to be a coach to say, oh, just deal with the pain. Like, that's pretty much what you should be feeling. But I think having that support is super important. And the community that we built, obviously, with these guys, creating that community makes me super happy. Because I think, like, end of the day, Jeremy can't be in it, which makes me sad. But, you can't bitch about Jeremy if he's there. So I get it.
Yeah. I think prep more than the process. I think it's the respect I found for myself in my prep. I've never given it all, like being 100% truthful about anything I've done in my life. So being in the prep, I think two things I've done. Personally, when I look back as to what I did really well is I kind of stuck to the plan. Every time, we had a change in food, change in exercise, or anything, I kind of just did that. Didn't really apply my brain. Once you and I had, once you explained it how it works, then I kind of stuck to it. And B, I think more than that, in one of your podcasts, you'd said that, you can win and prep every day. And show day is like, 1% of your whole journey. So it's like 5% of, all the hard work. And, what happens with show day is immaterial. And I think that stuck with me because it's like, what happens in the show day is going to be, it's a combination of so many variables, whereas I can do this day really well. So no matter what happened during the day, I was always finding my joy in the gym. and join the process. Like every time I could control my cravings and still do the cardio and the fasted or whatever we had to do. And it was just so self-rewarding that way. So I think I found appreciation for myself and the person I became after prep.
Yeah, like no matter the result, you executed prep like a champion, and I think that's why you can feel so rewarded. Like no matter the outcome, I'm super happy. Like because I did everything I could possibly do, and I battled every day to get to the stage. Like the cravings, the hunger, and I remember the C4 drinks, and you're like, "Can I have more?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, we're cutting that out." Like 7 days out, I was like, do your best to cut it out, but at the same time, it's what you battled yourself. We all have individual battles, and that's why it's all on you. Like I can't control. I can tell you, but I don't do it. But if you want to do it, I can't stop you from taking that food out of your mouth or whatever the case is, right? And yeah, that's amazing. Amazing story.
And I think I just want to add one thing. So one aspect of being your best version is, I think all of us have an idea of what your best version is. And one aspect, you can basically go spiritual and say, look, that's my best version. That's what I did. But you sort of know that, did you look better than what you thought? Or did you not look as good? And I think eventually at probably 4 weeks before the comp, I was blown away as I was looking. So I was obsessed with how good I was looking. So more than the fact that I did prep really well, but I was really happy that you were able to get me to a point where I was, as a person, I was like, I couldn't care less if I won on the show day or not. I looked bloody better than I thought I would look, and so thank you for that. In fact,
do you remember the time when you first saw it and you were like, "Hey man, I just want to say thanks for like actually showing that," because I was excited. I was like, "I see those abs." I was like, "Hey man," I remember at the posing workshop. I was like, "Hey, check those out." I was so happy. I was like, "Fuck yeah!" I was a happy coach.
And for people who don't know, when I started 18 months back, I was at 43% body fat.
Yeah, so yeah. How many kilos did you lose total?
47 by the time I was on the stage, 47 in total, which was like half of a person that just came out. So a lot of
crazy. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is crazy good. Like you did that all yourself. Even before we chatted, I think you already lost some initial weight. And I remember I was like, you know what, just go get a PT first and just go get some experience. And then once you get more consistency in it, then we'd be like, okay, let's talk about coaching after. And that's how we got back this year. And we teed up, be like, hey man, I'm ready to start. Let's do this. And then that's when I knew you're ready, because like that's an important part of what we look for in clients as well, is making sure that they're ready they're in the right point of their journey to kind of then really excel, because you're at the learning part and education part where you're like, okay, I've done the majority, like a good amount myself, but now I really want to know, how do I take it to that next level? And then that's when it becomes very beneficial for you to then work with a coach. Because if I had you back then and you were struggling to just stay consistent in the gym, then that leads to more problems in the future, because then you're not enjoying that process. Whereas now that you've solidified everything and then you started with us, we just fine-tuned what you were doing, improved it slightly, and then now you're in a good spot that's like, okay, yeah, I could nail this. It was perfect.
Yeah. I think one thing that just came in my head is that I think everyone's bodies are different. So how someone does the exercise could look perfectly all right when someone else does it, but they may not have the mind muscle connection. So I think as a coach, one of the things that I guess I've always seen you doing is, how did it feel to you? And I think just asking that makes a lot of sense, because I remember the first few weeks we started, I think I was looking form-wise, I was looking fine, but I knew mind-muscle connection, I wasn't really getting there. So I remember asking you, saying, can I do this? And, it might not look great, but mind-muscle connection for me was awesome. And just because of like, you were kind of sort of probing me to ask questions and make sure that I was checking in regularly and giving you all the data that, information. I think that made a lot of difference. That helped eventually in prep, because then by the time you were in prep, I was like, I could tell this guy anything. Like, you know how many days I've been constipated. Like, so we've talked more about shits.
We talk about poops a lot. Poops are important. Little do you know, but poops are important, and that's something we gotta manage as coaches as well. How does your poop look today? What does it look on the Bristol stool chart?
Legendary. Yes, at the moment, legendary.
Oh shit! That's very good. Thank you again, Nitin. Thank you for talking about your prep journey. So now we'll go to Sarah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your prep journey in itself?
My prep journey. It was challenging, to say the least. Although the positive aspects of it is that I was able to keep the promise to my sister and my family. I mean, after my dad passed away, my sister was like, you need to promise that you're going to stay healthy and that you're going to be okay. And like, it's sound a bit weird because everyone will be like, yeah, but prep's not healthy. And it's like, well, no, it's not healthy. 100% agree there. But mentally, it mentally solidifies you in such a way that you know that no matter what else, if you can get through a prep and you can like drag your ass up them stairs when you feel like you're going to like pass out on the back of it, or you can stand there and stare at the food, or even wake up in the middle of the night freaking out because you think you've eaten out the fridge when you're dreaming about the food, then
Yes,
no
that's
matter
very
what
normal.
happens, you're going to be okay. Like nothing is harder than getting through that. Like mentally, it's crazy. It just mentally grounds you. It's like, and I was saying to my husband the other day, if I can like stand on a stage and stick my ass out to like hundreds of people, then I'm pretty sure when I graduate university, I'll be fine in court. Like if you can do prep, you can do anything. But I met my best friend, like Shakaya. She became my best friend. I mean, talking about poop, she would literally sit on the phone with me saying, nothing's working. And I'm like, shouldn't you be talking to Jeremy about this? Like, why are you talking to me at 6 a.m. about your toilet trips? Like it became such a solid friendship that like even now, like we're very close. And yeah, I don't usually make friends, but Shakaya, like, yeah, she became my best friend. So thank you for that as well. But your prep was hard, man. Like, I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. It's like if you're happy with your body, don't do prep. But like if you really want to like push yourself to near insanity, like go for it.
The insanity. I think, I love the way you put it because I think, it translates. There's another thing that, prep does. It really pushes your pain threshold. And I think that's one thing that everyone develops during prep is that once you do prep, honestly, you could do anything in life. Like, because like prep is so hard mentally, physically, on every aspect in your life, work related, family related, relationship related, in every aspect that it really tests you as a human being. Like, because prep is 24/7. It's like your sleep gets destroyed. You're probably sleeping a lot less. You're tired all the time. Your brain can't function, and you still have to go about your daily life, working, training, doing your cardio, doing your steps, prepping your meals, the hours you spend cooking. You got to do that all. And I think a lot of people don't see that. And if they do see that, they're going to be like, oh my God, I could do anything in life. Because at the end of the day, we leave high school, right? And in high school, primary school, teachers set requirements. You have to do tests, you have to do quizzes, you have to do exams. It's as simple as it gets. You have to do it. It's compulsory. Even if you don't do well, you have to do it. When you leave high school, university don't give a shit about you. Like it's like if you don't do it, it's your problem, and it's the same thing with your health and fitness. Like no one's making you do it. Like you could still be doing what you're doing 3 years ago if you didn't change your life around. So there's no one putting a gun to it. And same as with coaching, like I can't put a gun to everyone's head and be like, hey, you need to follow this plan. Because there are a lot of times if the timing isn't right and they aren't ready to make the changes or make it happen no matter the circumstances, it's never going to probably happen for them. And I think that's an important factor that, even with Nitin, like, when we started back then, I just didn't feel like the timing was right at the time. Like if we could have started back then, but I was like, you know what, why don't you just go to the gym, get consistent in that, go see a PT, and then once that's all in, then we can look at then improving that. And so timing is super important. Obviously, your prep was a lot more complicated than others, but like the people don't see that, and then that's what I think frustrates me a little bit sometimes, that people judge you based on what you bring up on the stage. And I get it; it's a physique contest, 100% get it. That we're looking at your physique, we're trying to go up there, like, but the concept of, oh, you shouldn't even bother, or like you don't know everyone's journey, then you shouldn't say anything. Like, everyone, you should leave everyone to their own paths and their own goals, because that's what we do at SDG. And we try to combine people on the same journey and the same path to the same end goal, but it could be just at different levels. That's all it is. But we all have one goal, which is to be ultimately the best version of ourselves and harness our true potential. That's as simple as it gets. And then we connect on that same level. Like you met Shakaya, same as Nitin, you met friends in the health and fitness industry, created a group and stuff like that because you guys are on the same journey. Like, although the age difference could be different, you could be friends with someone who's like 22 years old. And you'd be like, oh, I would never have been friends with this guy if I didn't meet you during prep, you know? And you build those sort of relationships, and the people on the same goal is super important because you need people like that in the same environment to kind of get you to that next level.
I mean, with prep as well, like prep really, when you're creeping up to those last couple of months in prep, it really brings out the ugly in you. Like you literally look like you're being hit with a road train, and like meeting those people and them understanding and not taking judgment. Like I feel like that's why the connections there are built solidly. And also like you as a coach, like I didn't have a good time in the last couple of months of prep. Like my health significantly declined, and we had to do scans and bloods and everything to try and find a solution. So, you know,
It got
hours
to a
of phone
point.
calls.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. I'm not gonna lie. When your problem came out and I heard about it, and I was just like, "Oh shit, we need to do something about it." And I jumped you on the call straight away, and I was like, "Sarah, we gotta look after your health, right? Like we can't." I remember having this. I remember clearly. I was like, "We can't keep going. Like we have to stop. Like your health is more important. I can't keep pushing you because you have kids, you have a family, and that comes first."
Yeah.
But you convinced me. You convinced me to keep going, and so here we are. So we got here in the end. We got to the end, but we had to pivot. We had to pivot a lot in your comp prep where we had to pull out cardio. We had to reintroduce a bit of extra food. There's a lot of things that we had to deload to really get you feeling better, even though it wasn't healthy still. But like your drive to want to keep going, your goal of getting on stage was more important to you. You're like, okay, I'm gonna push myself to the absolute limit, and like,
Yeah, like I needed to prove it to myself that I could get there. Like, I wanted to prove that to myself, even if I had to pull back, even if like, like I forced myself to do those steps, and it was a crazy amount of steps, by the way, but we got there.
we had I do apologize because we had to pull back the cardio, and then I had to increase the steps elsewhere because you're like, I remember you telling me like, look, I'm getting bored and I need to do some sort of. I was like, all right, fine, let's just do extra steps. Normally, I don't ever give people plus 10,000 steps, but because in your situation where you're like, can I just at least do something? I'm like, all right, fine, let's just do some steps on the cardio machine. Like,
Start doing cardio behind your back soon, like
literally,
like, I can roll from back. Jeremy.
I literally, we did get to a point that I was like, look, Sarah, like it's pretty serious, like obviously with the health concerns and stuff, and I was like, you need to go get a doctor's certificate, just to confirm that we're actually good to keep going. I don't know if Nitin actually knows the story. Does Nitin, have you heard of this? You didn't know that? So
no, like only Shakaya knows. Like I had to be like medically signed off by the doctors to be able to continue prep.
Yeah, I had to get approval because it was pretty serious. But that's why, but in your goal to keep going, we just had to pivot. We just had to adjust some things. And I was like, let's just carb into the show. Like, let's not reverse diet into the show. You're like, okay, yeah, fair enough. I know you were fully against it, but are you sure you're just not being nice? And I'm like, no, it's because of your health. I was freaking. I was like, we got to do something about this. So yeah, but we got there in the end, and we were rewarded for it, which I'm super happy for you for, which is such an achievement.
Yeah, I still have your certificate somewhere in this chaotic room of mine.
Oh yeah,
I should probably come and bring that to you soon.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I need to put it up on my wall in my office. Need to add it to my wall. But yeah, once again, amazing effort. I was super glad that we got there in the end. And we got there safely. And now we're slowly reverse dieting. Obviously, we're still managing a lot of different things. But we're slowly coming out of the reverse really well. You guys are nailing it really well. Obviously, it may not feel like you guys aren't nailing it, but you guys are. And we are going to be doing a Zoom call next week, which you guys should be excited for. That's what we do here at S Legion. We're going to run Zoom calls because we're going to get everyone to tell us hang out their dirty laundry and tell us how bad they've had it in front of everyone else.
Meeting.
Yeah, AAA meeting. It's pretty much a AAA meeting. Okay, so I guess the final thing, was there anything you want to add to that, Sarah, or was that pretty much it?
No, that's all good. Thank you.
So I guess the final thing that we can talk about. So I want to get like maybe if you guys have 2 to 3 things that prep has taught you? We kind of have went over it, but what are the three major things that you have learned from prep? And was there anything you would do differently this time around if you were to go through prep again? We start with Nitin then.
Yeah. I think prep's taught me a lot of things like
Like three is too
consistency.
little. But there's
Consistency
three
is,
major things that comes to mind straight away that you're like, these are the three things I've learned the most from.
yeah, consistency, the magic of consistency. I've never been consistent. So I think one of the things I was finding it difficult to absorb every time we spoke initially, Jeremy, was you kind of have made fitness very simple. And I was like, how can it be so simple? Like, you were like, stay disciplined, be consistent, and you're going to get the results. And I think I came in from a perspective where I was like, I don't know if I would look that way ever. And you kind of kept me pointing towards basics. So I think I've learned consistency and the magic of consistency. So the consistent results will come in. The second thing is just investing in new knowledge. Like I've learned so much about macros, like weighing food. My family thinks I'm idiot because I weigh my food even now, and they struggle with that concept of weighing everything that you put in your mouth. So just weighing your food, because I think as Indians, as Asians, I mean, well, I don't think so. Any of us really know what weighing food is. So
Yeah.
I think that's something I've really understood. Just understanding nutrition. And the third thing is just self acceptance. Like I remember taking my shirt off for the first posing workshop, and I was like, I look shit. So just self acceptance, because your body is a magical tool. Like it does so much for you. So more self acceptance for the body that I have, because I always looked at body as an enemy. Like it doesn't look the way I want to. It just picks up fat really quickly. And I think it's more about, your body is actually, a reflection of who you are internally. So just more self acceptance is probably what Brett's taught me.
Amazing. That was really good. No, honestly, self-acceptance is a huge thing that people do forget. I think it's the first starting point of your habits and behaviors dictate how you're going to look. And I think you change all of that through consistency and executing the plan and learning about educating yourself as well. I think these are all things that you did really well in. Like I said, the questions you gave me really kept me on my toes, but it was good because I always love answering these questions because that's my job. I'm here to answer as many questions as you guys have and guide you so you learn these things for the future good. And the goal at the end of the day, my goal as a company is to focus on getting clients to a point that they don't need an online coach anymore. And that's a claim that I'm going to say in this podcast. So if anyone's listening to this right now, we are transforming our business company, and our message is that we're going to get to a point that we're going to have all the systems and processes that can help clients get to a point that they don't need an online coach anymore. And that's something that it means true to me, because I feel like the only reason you would need me is only because you just want that accountability. You just want someone in your corner, which is totally fine. And I can still be your friend and stuff like that. But the goal is to educate our clients to a point that they just know what they're doing. They know how to train. They know how to eat. They know what phases they need to do. They know how to train with good intensity. They even know how to create their own training program. I want to get everyone to a point that they know what they need to do for themselves. And the only reason they stick with a coach is only because they just want a bit of accountability, or they just like the relationship and they want to keep that going. But loyalty. I'm going to say it now. Yes, it's exciting, but it's a transit. But thank you for that, Nitin. That was very good. 3 things. I know you probably have a lot more than that. Did you have one more for us? Give us one more, because I feel like you have probably at least one more. Yeah.
Oh. I think it's just the whole trusting the process. I think it's one of those things, right? It is going to work, I guess. For anyone that's never shredded, for example, that was the big goal that I had. I think you just got to trust the process. And it sounds very cliched, and I heard it. It's one thing to know it, and the other thing is to really see it happening. Just trust the process. I think fitness is one thing. It's 2 + 2 is going to be 4 always. Like it will never be 4.5. There's no external variable. It's just the work you put in. It's going to look like, it's going to come out. So that's probably something that this has really shown me, and I think I'm going to apply this in other areas of my life as well. Just trusting the process.
It's a good saying. It's like, if you want to learn a language, right? If you want to learn Japanese, for example, when you want to learn Japanese, if you start learning Japanese today, yeah, you're not going to know a lot, right? But if you kept learning Japanese every single day for the next year, how good do you think your Japanese is going to be by the end of the year? Like how good is it going to be? You're probably going to hold sentences. You're probably going to understand a lot of words. And that's the same thing with health and fitness. It doesn't happen. Like you don't go train one session in the gym and all of a sudden you're like, I got abs and I'm freaking jacked. it doesn't happen that way. It happens through consistent effort and trust in that process that you're eventually going to get there. And there's no magic formula. It's just, how do we optimize? Like, to be fair, we can optimize things to the best of its potential, but at the same time, it comes down to just that consistency and trusting that you're putting in the work to get there. But yeah. Thank you so much, Nitin. So Sarah, do you have 3 things for us? The preface.
I think first, like how much discipline you can actually hold. It allows me to look at bodybuilders like Nicole and have like so much respect, like the actual discipline and sacrifice that you have to make. Like that's what prep taught me. The ability to stay accountable and be in your own corner. Like there were so many external factors coming in my direction during prep. Like I was fighting against my family about it, like, and still kept pushing forward. Like it teaches you to be your own friend. And third, how many different ways you can actually make rice cakes edible. Like, I think I was eating that 4 times a day at one point.
Have you not seen that guy who eats fish and rice cakes? Look him up on YouTube. Everyone look him up on YouTube. Fish and rice cakes guy. He was eating fish and rice cakes for every single meal. Like fish and rice cakes. Which I was like, hey, this guy's pretty smart.
I was eating chicken and rice cakes and egg and rice cakes. Good. I even bought different brands of rice cakes just to be like,
and they taste different.
This week. They do.
Oh, if you have the chance to go to America, there's this rice cakes called Wakers, I think, and they're the best flavored rice cakes in the world. Like they're low calorie, they're exactly like the normal rice cake macros, but they just taste amazing. And I was like, why does Australia not have this? And I remember trying to buy it in Australia, but like for one packet, it was gonna cost like $50 just for like. Because it was getting imported from America, so the shipping costs and stuff, and I was like, "Oh my god, this costs $50 for these rice cakes." I'm like, I need to import this stuff because it's so good.
There's a bodybuilder called Julia Renee, and she eats like the chocolate and caramel ones. And I'm like, the only flavor that's at Woolworths is like salt and vinegar and sour cream. Like, who wants to eat that with chicken?
No, trust me. There's like so many. They have so many crazy good flavors as well, and the rice cake's just so thick and so low calorie. And I'm like, how is this even possible? I don't know what they put in there. It's amazing. So I guess to clarify, so you learned a lot during this prep. So I think you one thing that comes to mind when I hear your journey is that you learn a lot of grit and resilience.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, and the clapping for yourself is such a huge part. Like clapping for yourself is something you got to be the person that claps for yourself, no matter how much support you might get and the support that you're not going to get. People don't realize how lonely your journey is going to be. Like when it is competing, when it is trying to succeed in life, in business, in your studies, in work, no one's clapping for you. Like, you know, yes, you can have a partner that supports you relationship wise, but at the end of the day, you have to do your own clapping. You have to be good to be able to push yourself even when you don't want to. When you're waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning or 6 a.m. in the morning, getting up to do your cardio, driving to the gym, no one sees that. And you've got to be your own fan. The better you are at being your own fan, the more successful you're going to be. Because the amount of times people hold themselves back from doubt and listening to what other people tell them of what they can't do is unreal. You know, and I think, you know, in today's society, it's so negative like that, like hearing all these different stories. And the amount of times I tell people, like, you just got to be your number one fan. Like, that's the only way. Like, if you are talking to someone else right now, someone else on their journey, what are you going to say to them? You're going to tell them, hey, keep pushing. You got this. You know, you're going to smash this, you know? And you guys will probably do that for other people. But then why should we talk to ourselves the exact same way? Why should we talk to ourselves like, oh, I'm shit. No, I'm crap. I can't do this. Like, would you say that to someone else? And I think this self-talk is so important that people need to improve on in life, that if we can better our self-talk and catch out the negative thoughts when they come and be like, wait, would I say this to my best friend? No, I wouldn't. Like, I mean, if you do, then there's probably something wrong with you. But, you know, if you do, you're just probably a spiteful person, to be fair. But if you can't say to someone else, then why should you say it to yourself? And that's why, you know, I want to tell you guys now that you guys overcame those battles yourself. And yes, I was here to kind of be in your corner to kind of support you through it. But in the day, you clapped with yourselves and you guys dominated and got to the freaking stage. Thank you,
We
guys.
did good.
Hey, you guys did good. Then between you guys, how many kilos have we lost? So Nitin lost 47 kilos. How many kilos did you lose, Sarah? Like 40.
42.
Oh, shit.
That's almost like 90 kilos lost in this one podcast right now, which is amazing. You guys should be super proud. That's almost a whole person in like 2 years for you guys as well. Like a 2-year journeys only as well. That is crazy. So no matter the outcome, I was already proud of these guys getting to the stage and looking the best that you possibly can. We overcame many hurdles to get here. So congratulations. And now we're going to go into reverse and recovery phase, which is a tough phase as I prepared you guys mentally before we even started prep. I told you guys that this phase is going to be the hardest phase. And I'm sure we'll probably do another podcast in the next 12 weeks to see how far you guys have gotten. So hopefully you guys are like, oh shit, we better stick to it then because we're going to be on podcast again soon.
So oh god, we're back to 80 kilos.
12 weeks? Yeah, it's like, oh, so yeah, the reverse didn't go very well. But we're going to be fine. Thank you so much, guys, for your time today. Guys, if you found any value from this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Make sure to tag us. And once again, if you just want to talk about prep or just talk to us about any questions to Nitin or Sarah, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer your questions. I'll make sure to tag them as well so that way you can follow their page, find them. Where can we find you, Nitin?
Instagram. I've got a page called Vejo Fit. So that's it.
Nice and easy to find. Same as Sarah. Where can people find you?
On Instagram, S900.
Perfect. So I'll make sure to tag you guys. If not, follow these guys, follow their journey, ask them questions, ask them about the prep process. And I'm sure you guys are happy to answer. You guys are happy to answer them, right? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Make sure they're happy to answer questions. I shouldn't just throw it on them like that, but I'm sure they're able to answer your questions, talk about prep, talk about that journey. And you guys can find out a little bit more about what we do here at S Legion and how we do things slightly differently to everyone else. But once again, guys, thank you for your time today. And I hope to see you in the next podcast where we may talk about reverse and the recovery phase 12 weeks from now. So be prepared, guys. I will get you guys back.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.